Welcome to the DIY Goalie Podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie. Goalies, how are we doing? Welcome back to the DIY Goalie Podcast, presented by True North Goaltending. As you guys could probably hear, we have a guest on today that we are doing an interview with. No, I'm just kidding. But Connor has brought Emerson on. She's hanging out in his lap today. So, we got three hosts. Two of us will probably make most of the contributions. The other one will just yell a little bit, but that's okay. How are we doing over there today, Connor?
We're a little grumpy over here today, but I mean, so far we seem pretty content for the most part. So Emerson will chime in with her thoughts on things as we continue throughout the pod today. Other than that, you and I were talking a little bit ago, just kind of load management and then keeping all our ducks in a row. And I totally understand where you're coming from today between our on ice sessions, the 9 to 5, and all the family stuff. I don't even know what day of the week it is today, so I don't even know what month we're in. So, but beyond that, no, everything's all good over here. PWHL season started yesterday, so got to give a shout out to former guest of ours and PWHL Frost goaltender Marlene Boisson. No, she didn't play, and the Frost they fought hard. Unfortunately, fell down by a goal in the final minutes here of the period against the New York Sirens. We're a little sad over here because of that, but all's well that ends well. So yeah, big shout out to Marlene for jumping on the pod. We've been keeping in touch here and there, but yeah, good luck to her and the rest of the Minnesota Frost and all the PWHL teams throughout the rest of their season.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a note of it to try and watch more games this year. We'll see. As you said, with load management, we'll see where we can slide that in. But we just talked about good load management on the ice. We're both out to lunch when it comes to that off the ice. But hey, we somehow still find a way to slide in some content for the pod. So that's all good. But yeah, no, we actually just put out a call for a couple more goalie coaches to try and take the load off a little bit. But as it seems, we do that and then we just get more and more work. So, good problem to have. But yeah, makes for some long days for sure. But that's all good. So, speaking of that, we are going to tie in a little bit today on kind of some ways to deal with some specific struggles. So Connor's going through some stuff with one of his teams that he's working with. I'm going through some stuff with with one of the teams I'm working with. That kind of translated good to the podcast to touch on a little bit. The first thing I kind of wanted to talk about, because I've actually been bringing this up to a couple goalies recently. Just ones that have kind of found issues that they're struggling with. And just like Emerson's struggling a little bit today. So maybe she can open her ears a little bit and listen. But
I
no,
think we're just getting a little tired over here.
Yeah, me too. I think it's my nap time for sure. We're gonna talk about a couple. Like I know we've touched on pregame routines before, but what I wanted to touch on is the fact that we can maybe have a couple different routines based off of kind of how we're feeling. You're just gonna have to cut out like your side of the audio for like 80% of this episode.
That is basically what I'm gonna do.
All right. So we've touched on pregame routines a little bit. A couple times actually throughout the podcast, and we kind of had half an episode or a full episode on one on the topic before. But kind of what I wanted to touch on, because this has come up a few times with some of the goalies that I'm working with lately, is the fact that it's okay to have a couple different pregame routines. So I never really thought about this until I started talking this through with one of the goalies I was working with, and we were kind of talking about pregame routine and talking about, the nervous excitement going into games and stuff like that. And it actually made me kind of think back and reflect to when I played in terms of the pregame routine. Is I actually had a couple variations of my routine. Most of the routine was exactly the same, but for me, what I did physically and what I listened to in terms of music changed based off of how I was feeling. So, one thing that I think we don't talk enough about in the goalie world in general, we always preach pregame routine and we always preach, repeatability with your routine. But to be honest, it's, in my opinion, good to have a couple variations of that depending on how you're feeling. So for me, for example, if I was kind of lethargic, kind of tired, just kind of feeling on the day of a game, I'd actually throw on some of the more like hard music, like hard rock and kind of, that pump up style of music to try and get me going a little bit more. But then on the flip side, there's a few games where I'd have that nervous energy where you're just kind of, you know, shaking a little bit or vibrating a little bit. You're just ready to go. You're anxious, like, you're kind of fidgety, bouncing your leg while you're sitting kind of thing. Um, for games like that, I would kind of have a more chill playlist to listen to where I could try and kind of calm myself down a little bit, kind of just mellow out, have, some deep breathing and just chill. Um, so I also know that like on those days that I wasn't feeling it as much, I wouldn't really go and, you know, do as much dynamically in my warm up, like in terms of stretching, in terms of, you know, that kind of dynamic warm up. I would kind of tone that down a little bit. And then vice versa, too, when I was feeling a little bit more anxious, a little bit more energetic, I would try and kind of, get myself a little bit of that energy kill. I'd try and do a little bit more to get rid of that nervous energy a bit, kind of try and mellow out a little bit more. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that and talk about that point that, based off of how you guys are feeling, you can have a couple routines kind of in your back pocket ready to go based off of how you're feeling and how you want to kind of approach that game.
I think, I mean, you guys won't hear it on my side because the audio will have been muted, but Emerson's just chatting up a storm over here. So I think she has something to say before Nathan before Nathan does. Hey, that's
Yeah,
okay.
she's
Um,
telling me to go pound sand and that I'm wrong, and she already knows, right? She's
that's
what 3 4 months old, and she already knows everything, right? So
yeah, exactly right. Hey, do you know everything already? Oh, we're getting tired. That's okay.
yeah, it's some good
Yeah,
islands.
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, you know what's funny? Like it's we were talking about shouting out Marlene. Like she was talking about, dealing with nerve. I mean, it's not necessarily like pregame stuff, but like she was talking about like dealing with nerves already. Especially in like a tight game or like when your team goes on the penalty kill or whatever. Like your nerves or being nervous or getting anxious out on the ice in particular is more so a thing of like your body's saying like you're ready to go, basically, right? It's all the jitters and such. Like it's your body just really ready to release that energy and get going. So it's not necessarily like, oh my god, like I don't know if I could do this or anything. It's more like, yeah, I'm ready, let's go, type of deal, right? And it's like, even with the off ice stuff as well, it's all mental preparation, right, in the same breath too. And that's where a lot of that comes into play as well with the excuse me, the you know preparing for a game, making sure that we have the right meals, the right type of music that we're listening to, anything that we can do to get ourselves ready. And even then, you may feel nervous, but it's not necessarily the nerves of, even like, for like a big game, playoff game, tournament game, whatever. It's not necessarily a thing of like, um, I don't know if I can do this. It's more so just your body saying, I'm pumped up, I'm ready, you know, let's go, type of thing, right? So,
Yeah. And that's so I guess to go back on some of the stuff we've talked about before, like we've talked about wanting to make a repeatable pregame routine. And that's still true, but you can have a couple variations. And again, this is where like we talk about the game day journaling, like that comes into play, being able to say, this is how I felt today. This is what I did before the game. And that helped how I played, or that didn't help how I played. And then you can kind of refine it a little bit, right? And I do think it's good to change pace a little bit based off of how you're feeling. Because as we all know, each game we play, we feel a little bit different. Sometimes, we're more relaxed, more focused, ready to go. Sometimes life's chaotic and we're kind of all over the place and have to try and calm down a little bit. So, figure out what works for you guys. And then just building off of that too. One of the other things that I've kind of been dealing with one of the goalies I work with, is consistent soft goals. So in our goalie sessions, he's pretty dialed in, making great strides in his development, and pretty much close to unbeatable in a lot of like the routine drills and saves and stuff that we do. And then I get video from their games after weekends, and there's at least a couple goals over the weekend that it's like, ooh, well, I shouldn't say at least a couple goals. There's frequently, not all the time, but there's frequently where it's like, ooh, like that just beat him. Like just a straight shot from somewhere, no traffic, just beat him clean. And that doesn't happen in our goalie sessions. And so I kind of talked to him a little bit about it. And, he said that this is kind of the first year he's been dealing with being more so the guy as opposed to kind of more of that 50-50 split. He's also kind of mentioned the internal pressure that he puts on himself too. So he finds that there's a little bit more of that pressure that he puts on himself. And that's kind of what's leading him to do a little bit extra, I guess, in terms of trying too hard. Like we've talked about it before, as goalies, we can't really go out and make things happen. The game comes to us. We also can't really, try harder, because a lot of times that does not translate well for us. Like the more we try and do, usually the worse it goes for us. And so we are kind of talking about that because his team does not score very much, and they're a new program. They don't have a lot of, you know, or they don't really have it yet. They're kind of losing more so than they're winning, to put it nicely. So they're struggling a bit as a team. And we think that might be part of that internal pressure is he's almost maybe thinking that he has to do more than he can, right? Like he can't score the goals, he can't do anything like that. But I think that pressure is there that, if I let in, 2 to 3 goals, we're basically going to lose, right? So I think there's some of that pressure to want to try and, you know, make more happen, try and make it so that, he's working harder to not let in those goals, which ends up putting him in bad spots and getting him beat on shots that he normally wouldn't be beat on. And I think that's something we can all relate to at some point. Like if we don't have confidence or don't have trust in our defensemen, they like we tend to try and compensate for that. So if there's like a backdoor threat, we might start cheating the pass a little bit as opposed to the shot. Or if, our defensemen have a tendency to turn the puck over or to, you know, make bad plays on the breakouts, we might, when we stop the puck, try and rim it off high and hard off the glass every time, or try and go for the crazy long stretch pass, or anything like that. So if you do find yourself in a situation where you are on a team that's struggling, especially offensively, and if you're on a team that maybe your D zone structure isn't there, just worry about your job. Everything else you can't control. Just worry about getting to your spots early, tracking pucks, making saves in front of your body, all those core basic foundational skills that we talk about. And don't try and, you know, put the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? Other, like, your team, you can't control what they do. If they can't score goals and you're losing 1-0, it is what it is, right? You can only stop the next puck. So that means that you don't want to try and put that pressure on yourself to do more. And you don't want to try and overextend yourself or overcomplicate things by trying to do more.
Yeah, definitely. Like that's like the biggest thing is that again we talked about before as well. Controlling the controllables and such, right? And it's funny like you mentioned that because I remember on one of the teams that I was coaching a very long time ago. We gave up a goal where it was such an easy save for them to make, but yet they ended up making it more difficult than they needed to. And so I asked them, I said, like what happened on that play? And the goalie said, so well, I'm dealing with the like I'm taking on the guy that's the backdoor threat. And I go, why? And he goes, because my defenseman was dealing with the guy with the puck. And I go, yeah, that's your job too. Don't worry about that backdoor guy. You know that he's there. You know that he's a threat. But realistically, that's your defenseman's job to be doing that. So that's not something that you need to be concerning yourself with. You need to be concerning yourself with the guy who has the little black rubber thing on his stick. So just it was mind-boggling for me to see that, and it was an attestament to kind of how bad our defense was in our own zone. But like just yeah, like just stuff like that. It's just again like we talked about it before. Like controlling the controllables is one thing, and really like it sounds so stupidly simple, but it's true. It's like the goaltender's job at the end of the day is to stop the puck by any means necessary, right? And so uh, I don't understand why we as goalies need to make things more complicated than we need to in some instances. But with that being said, I totally understood the thought process behind it, but I'm also thinking like you what's your job as the goalie is to stop the puck. You're dealing with the guy that has the puck. You are aware of that backdoor threat, but why are you trying to play man-to-man coverage when and you're essentially exposing yourself to get scored on? Basically, that was one thing I couldn't understand there, and no matter how hard he tried to explain it, I still just like, no, like you can't do that. And so just
Yeah.
yeah,
And that kind of
yeah,
goes
it's
back to, I don't know if Shortsy ever talked to you about it, but like the A grade goals, the B grade goals, the C grade goals, like as goalies, if we're only giving up A and the odd B grade goal, we're in a good spot. It's when you start letting in the C and the D grade goals that's when you get into trouble. And
yeah,
usually defensive breakdowns are the A and the B grade goals, and those are kind of the ones that if they go in, they're lower percentage plays. They don't always connect anyways. Yes, we want to be aware of them and try and stop them, but sometimes it's not realistic, right?
yeah. And there was a quote by I was listening to Goalie Science. Was it Goalie Science? No, it wasn't Goalie Science. I think it was one of Jamie's videos, and he was talking about a quote that Derek had said to him very long time ago. The purpose of hockey is to score goals. That is the essential point of the whole game. Is one team is trying to outscore the other one in a 60-minute period, basically in a 60-minute game, basically. If it weren't for the goals, we'd end up having a bunch of soccer matches where it's 1-0 by the time that it's the, I don't know, 2 hour mark of the game or whatever. And I'm just talking game clock. Um, but that's essentially like like understand as goalies realistically over anything is that goals are going to go in. Now, the type of goals that we give up, that's a whole nother ball game in itself, which we all know far too well. I'm going to try and refrain from mentioning number 74 on the Edmonton Oilers, but that's, again, a prime example of that. It's like there are going to be good goals that are going in, there are going to be bad goals that go in, and people will try and hang it on the goalie as much as they can. But again, goalies know goaltending. Their goalies know what goalies go through. Essentially, we know that. Yeah, okay, yeah. Was it a quality shot, or was it a garbage goal, basically? And so what was, if the outcome were to change? I guess either hey, A, how would we have done it differently, or B, is if we took away any other factors, would the result have been the same?
Yeah, it's kind of funny that a lot of times when the team's struggling, but it's close, tends to be the goalie's fault.
Yeah.
Like, if a team's struggling, but they're kind of with it there, if they're losing like, 5-3 or 6-4 or something like that, it tends to always fall on the goalie. But a lot of people, it's the easy scapegoat. And I don't know. The big thing is just worry about doing your job. Everything else will take care of itself. Um, as it will. You can't control if your defensemen suck. You can't control if your forwards can't score a goal to save their life. All you can control, like Connor said, is stopping the puck. And
I
you
I
know,
love those quotes. Sorry to cut you off.
yeah,
I love those quotes from goalies. Especially in the pro level. They'll blatantly come out and say like, "I can't score goals." Basically,
yeah,
right? I love when goalies say that because it's such an out of pocket thing to say, but it's true. And I love when there's a little bit of pushback from the goalie to the team and being like, "Hey, like, I'm the guy that's supposed to stop the puck. You're the guy that's supposed to score the goal. So who's not doing their job here? Or who's not
yeah,
doing their job more, essentially."
yeah.
Yeah.
Should we carry that through into your point because they kind of tie in pretty good together?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, so I'm kind of going through a weird thing right now where my team started off pretty hot, at the start of the year. One of our goalies started off really, really hot. Um, and now after we've been a month into the season and we've had a tournament and a half under our belt now, we're starting to see some, not regression, but we're starting to see a lot more holes starting to open up, for lack of a better term, over anything. So I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to deal with that yet. I do keep in touch with my guys on a semi-regular basis. I actually texted them this morning, and so from kind of what I'm hearing on both sides is that it sounds like this tournament that we're in is kind of like a bit of a weird one right now, and just like nobody's playing how they normally would. And so essentially we're kind of going through a little bit of a downfall. We're kind of going through a little bit of a slump right now. And I think it's a mixture of things. Number one is, we're playing so many games in a row on a day. We're playing teams that, we don't normally play throughout our regular season. We're only seeing them in tournament based games. Um, and so how we thought we were playing obviously isn't how we're actually playing in this tournament. So it's a matter of, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to make sure that this doesn't affect us long term? And so the first thing I said to both of my guys is that we're going to have a maintenance day the next time I see them. I only get to see them once a week. But this upcoming Thursday, when I do head out with them, is yeah, we're just gonna have a maintenance day, go back to basics, simple skating, simple tracking. We're not going to introduce anything new, not like we have been anyways, but we're not going to replicate game like scenarios. We're just going to go right back to the basics, right back to the foundation of, okay, we're working on tracking today, so which means that there's not a lot of skating, or even the skating that we do have to start off, it's going to be a couple of skating patterns, and there's going to be a couple of technique things that we're going to be looking out for. Um, the biggest thing that we want to make sure that we don't do, especially when we are kind of going through a slump, is that we're not doing anything that's going to be, excuse me, detrimental to our development, nor we don't want to be doing anything that's going to overcorrect what we're doing either. Because even if we're struggling on the glove side, we know how to make glove saves, but if we try and tear down everything that we knew about making a glove save and trying to rebuild it back up, that's going to cause more harm than it is good. So
New
when I say
break
like a
and
maintenance, sorry,
new glove break, new hand
yeah,
position,
yeah, exactly. All this sort of all that sort of stuff. So it's just so that's what, and I use maintenance days quite a bit when I was coaching my junior A, junior B team as well. Excuse me, I'm coming out of like a tail end of a cold here, so this is not fun. Yeah, so just like maintenance days are nice. It's go back to basics day. Have a little bit of fun, kind of re-fall in love with the position, re-fall in love with the game, and just tackle it from there. And then hopefully we're able to get back to where we want to be, or even if we might already be where we are, we're just in kind of this mental state right now of, I'm not good enough, I'm not playing good enough right now. So what like DefCon 5, like, what's gonna happen?
yeah. The in season slump's an interesting one to tackle. Um, there's a variety of reasons that it could creep in. Part of it could be, the talent on the other teams is like they're doing development too. Maybe, that's increasing. The skill level we're facing is increasing. Um, the other thing too, a lot of it usually tends to be mental in whatever situation or environment you're in. Like in my last year of junior, for an example, I think in my first 6 starts, I had like 3 shutouts, and our team was really good. So it wasn't just me. Like I think I had one shutout that was like 12 saves or something like that. But I we started to get to a point because we had a very aggressive coach slash GM who is known for making changes, and like 30 to 50% of the team you start the year with is completely different and go play or come playoffs. So moves started to happen, and then you're kind of a little looking over your shoulder a little bit after that, right? And you have one game that maybe doesn't go that well, and then you're sweating a little bit, and then that starts to snowball. And that was my situation a little bit, where probably October went really well, November and a little bit of December not so much. And it's tough to try and get it like out of that, especially if you're in a situation when you're playing something like junior or whatever the case is, where at the drop of a hat you could be traded or cut or whatever the case is. Um, so that can really weigh mentally on you, which then kind of translates to a big snowball, right? But again, if we can just take a step back and simplify and boil it down to the basics, like Connor's talking about in those maintenance days, um, it's not like you've forgotten how to play goal overnight or over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, whatever. Like, it's not like your skill set has regressed unless you're like injured or something like that. But you still have the ability to do what you were doing when you were good. A lot of times it just comes to our perception in our head, right? Like And it goes back to kind of that stuff we talked about way back in the Pete Fry episode, where it's confidence. If you are sitting there thinking that you're not going to do well, more often than not, that manifests itself into your actual performance. And that kind of goes back to kind of what we were talking about at the start there, too, is how am I feeling going into the games and what can I do to help change that feeling or change that mindset or whatever? How do I gain more confidence? Because it's not a skill issue. You were doing just fine a couple weeks ago. It's a mindset issue. And a lot of times it is just hitting that reset button, just saying, okay, you know what? Let's go back to just working on nailing down the tracking, nailing down the save execution, nailing down the skating, hitting our spots early, and then we can start building from there again. So, like in my last year at junior, coming back from the Christmas break, and this was our whole team, but I did play the majority of the games. We had one loss after Christmas, and it was a shootout loss, and that was it. And then we also we won our first 11 straight in playoffs. And then we finally lost game 4 of the finals before we won game 5. So we were 12-1 in playoffs. But it happens. Like, you start getting nervous about whatever situation you're in, or you start to overthink things or start over analyzing, and you don't just let it happen. And like Connor said, sometimes it's good to just hit the reset button, have a couple maintenance days, just work on the absolute basics, the foundation, and kind of get back to work. But the big thing I want you to take away from it is you're still the same goalie you were a couple weeks ago if you're in a slump. It's just a matter of something, mentally has changed. The skill is the same. You have the same ability that you did a handful of weeks prior.
Yeah. Um, Again, it's all just a matter of how do we handle it at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
What are we going to do to make sure that this doesn't snowball any more than it has, you know, or before it does, really. Um, we've all gone through them one way or another, you know. Baseball players go through them, especially you really notice it with a baseball player, especially in a pitcher where, the pitcher's not hitting their zone, or the release of the ball's not coming off the same as maybe it once did. So it's just essentially going back to basics over and over again, and you see that so much in the pro levels as well. Again, shouting out In Goal magazine and their pro reads, like they're not in those pro reads, like they are touching on some of the more intricate side of things, but really just like they're just most of these pro drills that you're seeing is just like, yeah, there's nothing too crazy. It's not like it's a 1 2 3 shot drill or anything. It's a one shot, one puck, and they're working on the most basic of things. Um, so it's again, we talk about utilizing ice time and utilizing ice time effectively. That is one of them. And I've said to you guys on previous episodes, and I've said it to my goalies as well: pick one thing that you want to work on, pick one thing that you want to achieve in a game, pick one thing that you want to work on in practice, and hammer that home. Essentially, right? Is it making sure that you get good rotations on your T pushes? Is it, making good glove saves out in front of you? Whatever. You don't need to be, as goalies, we like to worry about plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But you do that, it's going to affect you a lot more, and you're going to make costly mistakes both in a practice and in a game setting. And it's going to snowball because we're focusing on, because we got distracted with that, and now we got distracted with this other thing, so on and so forth. And so it all snowballs. So just pick a thing that you want to work on, pick a thing that you want to achieve in practice. And so, especially even if we are going through some kind of slump. It's like, hey, back to basics. Is it just want to make sure that I catch the puck in the pocket of my glove? Is it, want to make sure that my feet don't do any extra type of movement after I stop and get set in my position? Stuff like that. It's really just how it boils down to at the end of the day. But it's how do we come back? How do we mentally prepare? How do we um just how do we handle it?
Yeah. And you see it lots at the pro levels too. Like, how many times have we seen a goalie going into the season that's supposed to be the starter, and then maybe at some point, a month or two in the season or halfway through the season or whatever, they kind of lose the net for a little bit. But, a lot of times, because those guys are at the top of the top levels, they find a way that, once it comes time for playoffs, it's their net again. They've kind of commanded it. Now, there are situations where sometimes guys can't get out of it and they do lose their net for good, and that's kind of what you want to try and avoid. But it really just comes down to understanding that our job is simple. It's hard, but it's simple. You have to stop the puck, and you can't go out. Like, we have one of the few positions in sports that you can't go make things happen. You can't work harder to get results. Yes, you need to obviously be putting in effort. You need to be battling and stuff like that. But you can't make a harder blocker save, or like
Yeah,
you just can't work harder to get better results. A lot of times it's just almost the opposite, where you almost have to try and do a little bit less. And we've talked about that on previous podcasts too, where it's like we have to simplify and we have to be efficient. We have to try and do the least amount possible to get the job done, so we're not making all this extra complicated stuff that's going to overwhelm us. It's going to put us in a bad position that is unsustainable, right? If you're trying to block the pass across while trying to stay set in, for the shot, while trying to, cover for the trailer on a 3-on-2, whatever the case is, if you're thinking about all that stuff, you might as well just give them the goal right then and there, right? So at the end of the day, let the puck come to you, let the play come to you, get your spots quick, track that puck, keep it simple, and just believe in yourselves. Like, have
yeah,
that confidence that you are where you should be. Have that confidence that your ability has not changed. The only thing that's changed is kind of your mental state, and you can do things to get out of it. You can work, and I'm pretty sure we did touch on an episode kind of trying to get out of a slump. We can maybe link that in the show notes if I remember to put that in. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's one of those positions that we just really can't go out and make things happen, unfortunately. So do what you need to do to stop the puck, and that's really all it boils down to.
it
So,
seems so stupidly simple, but
well,
yet
it is.
well, it is. But as goalies, even just us as people, we make it so much more difficult on ourselves than we ever really need it to be, and it can snowball, it can and will snowball really quickly if left unchecked. So
Yeah, and that's why everybody out there is like just always rags on the goalies. It's just like, come on, guys, stop the puck. It's easy.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
Come on.
exactly what we're saying on the. No, I'm just no, we're
All
not
those
saying
Oilers fans that I've been ripping for the last year and a bit, you are right. No, God, please,
that.
no.
Yeah, no,
Um,
but
yeah,
you get the point. So obviously, we
yeah,
know there's a lot more that goes into it, but at the end of the day, we don't have to overcomplicate things. Don't get in your head about it. Believe in yourselves. Have the confidence that you should be there, and I think
yeah,
you'll be okay.
yeah.
So,
Um,
is that all we got? That was a
yeah.
pretty quick two-person episode today.
Well, I think it's one. I mean, like it kind of helps when both of our points kind of tie hand in hand today.
Yeah,
We come prepared. We're able to hit our spots, and we're able to get a quick up and over, sink a putt, and call it a day. So
maybe we're just not into ranty moods today. But that being
come
said,
come back next week and then we'll see.
yeah, there'll be a lot of I hate yous flying around next week.
Yeah.
Not that I even know what we're talking about next week yet, but hey. Um, Before I let you do the outro, though, I do want to shout out to all of you out there because it is really cool to see the listenership growing globally. Like, we've had quite the uptick in South America lately, which is pretty cool to see.
Oh.
Um, and actually, what I found out too is shout out to one of my goalies out there who is going for a tryout for the Peru national team in a
Oh.
little bit, which is pretty cool to see. I did not know Peru had a national hockey team, but hey, so we're making waves in South America, I guess, from up here. But even to all of you over in Europe or in Australia, North America too, we appreciate you tuning in, and it's kind of cool to see where all of you are from. And just a big thank you from myself, and I'm sure Connor too, and hopefully you guys keep enjoying what we put out there. But I just wanted to shout you all out. So
That's slander. I'm not thankful whatsoever. What do you mean?
yeah.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Because I was actually at the rink for one of our Tuesday evening skates, and goalie mom stops me because I'm wearing my True North tracksuit, and she stops me. She goes, "You're Connor, right?" And I go, "Yeah." And she goes like, "Oh, I recognize you from the podcast." I'm like, "Okay, cool." Like so, getting that recognition and knowing that we are making a difference out there in the goaltending world, both in our community of Edmonton and Alberta, and expanding internationally is really cool and surreal to see. And it sounds so cliche, but we are thankful for the listenership and the viewership and the saves, the likes, the subscribes, the follows, um all that stuff. And it just shows that what Nathan and I are doing here is working, and it has some impact. And just can't be seriously though can't be more thankful for that. And so yeah, so I think we have to rebrand ourselves from True North goaltending to True South goaltending. If that's where a lot of
Through
our
everywhere.
a lot.
Well,
Oh
I'll
dear.
let you take us out, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's it for today.
Sounds good. Well, this has been another edition of the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. Make sure you guys follow us on our social media channels. That is all True North Goaltending, except on Instagram because we like to be different. That one is YEG Goalie Coach. You can follow myself over on Instagram at MondayGC. Go check us out, TrueNorthGoaltending.com, if you are in the Edmonton area and would like to book a facility session with us. We've been pretty active on those lately, hey?
Yeah, definitely a lot busier than last year. So
And that's exactly what we love to see. So shout out to all the people that have come through that door and have braved the Alberta winters in the industrial area where we are located. Yeah, but go check us out, TrueNorthGoaltending.com, if you are interested in booking a session with us. You can buy multi packages, you can buy single sessions. So go check all that out there. Also over on our website, we do have our drill catalog. So you can go check that out if you are looking for drill ideas or inspirations for your next practice. We also do have all of our articles that were previously on the DIY goalie that has now been brought over to True North Goaltending. It's been like that for a while. We also do have concentration grids, so if you are wanting to put your mind to the test, go generate a concentration grid off of our website. 1 through 99 it is, right? 1 through 10.
yeah, well, it depends. You can actually make your own sizes. I can't remember what the lowest size you can make. I think it's 4x4 grid, so
Okay.
16 or 0 to 15, and then I think you can go up to a 20 by 20 grid. So
Okay.
that'd be 0 to 3.99. But I implore you, if you want to tackle that beast, good on you.
Fair enough. And then lastly, on our website as well, you guys can go get some of our goaltending merch there, such as my little goalie makes big saves, and I don't talk to myself. My posts are listening. Just a couple of graphic tees out there that we do have available at TrueNorthGoaltending.com. If you are watching over on the YouTube side of things, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are a new viewer to our little channel. If you are a returning viewer or even just a viewer in general, make sure you guys hit that like button and that share button. It helps push the algorithm, helps us bring more goalies together. If you are over on any sort of podcast platform, whether that be Apple, iHeart, or Spotify, or wherever it is that you get your platforms, if you are a new listener, welcome, and make sure you hit that follow button for every new episode that comes out every Tuesday. And if you are a returning listener, make sure you hit whatever button that correlates to a like button, if there is such a thing, and hit the share button as well, because the more goalies that we are able to bring together, the better. On behalf of myself and Nathan Park, and I guess Emerson Monday, this has been the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending, mix of saves goalies. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.